It's times like this I wish I was a faceless YouTuber. I wish I was one of those caricatures that was just like a commentary channel that could say whatever he wanted to, and if he got it wrong, who cares? What are you gonna do, get mad at a cartoon? He's not real. Earlier today, I uploaded a video titled Rachel Gunn is a Fraud, a follow-up video talking about that viral Australian breakdancer who went viral for not doing very well at the Olympics. It was like my best performing video like this entire year. I have literally never seen a 13% click-through rate. It was doing numbers, and I took it down. Why did I take it down? Because that's what Scott the Woz would have done. That's my guiding star. I thought, listen, I got something wrong. It was a little more than just a small detail. It really kind of tainted the entire video. Scott the Woz wouldn't make that mistake, so I had to take it down. I'll admit it does feel a little bit like getting one guide, which is a phrase in streaming when somebody in chat says something and then the streamer goes on an entire tangent as if the entire conversation was revolving around something that only actually became one message that they hyper-focused on. But that's the reality of the situation. I'm sure some of you are thinking, Sumet, did you really take down a video and then re-record this entire thing in order to address getting a fact wrong? You get stuff wrong all the time. And while that's true, it's generally harmless, and I'm usually pretty well aware of it. But in this case, I made a few too many assumptions and didn't clearly dictate between when I was reading facts out of a news article and when I was being hyperbolic for the sake of comedy, and it came off as me just being disingenuous and lying for the sake of dunking on this woman, and I just personally feel bad about that. So we're gonna do this properly. Rachel Gunn 2, Electric Boogaloo. Let's take a look at what's happening. Step 1. What is this big deal that you got wrong, Sumito, that has got your panties in a bunch and now has you double dunking on a video that's not going to get anywhere near the views of the first video because you already privated it? As much as I joke, kind of an important distinction. There was a bit of old news from earlier this week that was basically around the idea that there was this massive petition being signed by a ton of people in Australia, something to the tune of like 30 or 40,000 people, trying to rally together to hold Rachel Gunn and Anna Meares, who is that woman that gave that little bit of speech on behalf of the Australian Olympic Committee, in defense of Rachel Gunn, because everybody was under the impression that she had slyly done some sort of manipulation to get her qualifications in the Olympics illegitimately. This illegitimate qualification rumor was something to the tune of either they made it difficult for other people to perform and therefore Rachel Gunn had an advantage, or her husband was part of the committee that was hiring or looking after the people who would qualify and would naturally pick his wife, or the Olympic Committee was founded by Rachel and her husband and therefore had the ability to rule out anybody who wasn't Rachel from having to compete and having a chance at getting to the Olympics. A number of people, including several news articles, have been running with any one or every single one of these facts in order to shade any sort of accomplishments that Rachel Gunn had in her performance at the Olympics. However, it comes to note that almost none of these things have any factual evidence behind them. Rachel Gunn's husband is not part of the committee that oversees, qualifies, or does anything to the tune of figuring out who is going to move on to the Olympics or even ranks anybody within Australia itself. I imagine this is evolving from the fact that Rachel Gunn and her husband do have some sort of foundation that is used to provide sponsorships and teaching and athleticism to people who are breakdancing, and so people may have confused the fact that they have that foundation with the foundation that is in charge of running the Olympic qualifications. The notion that Rachel Gunn's husband was one of the Olympic judges or one of the qualifiers who would be in charge of seeing who moves on to the next stages is also just not true. This was one of the key points of contention in that petition that had everybody rallied together to try to claim that Rachel Gunn's qualification was illegitimate. That petition has, within 24 hours, since been taken down, and a statement has been made by the Sydney Morning Herald, basically just clarifying that Rachel Gunn nor her husband are founding members or are on the board of directors of the Australian Breaking Committee or any of the organizations that were in charge of locating who would be the winners of these breakdancing qualifications. And the notion that the qualifying round wasn't super favorable to everybody is the one that holds the most weight, because that one comes from an article written in Australian Yahoo News from a competing breakdancer by the name of Leah. Leah's interview in the article is the one that I paid the most attention to and mostly addressed in the video that I made prior that I'm readdressing now. She stated on several occasions that there were a number of hurdles that felt like unnecessary obstacles in order to get the absolute best talent to become the face of what would be Australia's breakdancing team, citing things such as having to register with 3 different organizations and having a valid international passport before even being able to register to try to qualify, to try to have a chance at beating somebody like Rachel Gunn or whomever else to then be nominated to be on the Olympic stage. The key thing I got wrong was painting that in a way as if it was Rachel Gunn's husband's fault, when in reality, that's just the failing of the overall organization to not allow any and all competition to be the best competition, to be a part of these Olympic qualifying rules. And so while it still holds true that Rachel Gunn probably didn't face the absolute best competition in her eliminators to become the person who would end up ultimately representing Australia, it doesn't seem as though the reason for that is because of her own doing. Rachel wasn't in charge of who could make it to the qualifiers. If it turned out that there weren't that many people there, which according to Leah in that article, because of how quickly they had the qualifiers after announcing that there even would be qualifiers, there weren't even enough female breakdancers at the qualifiers to have a proper top 16, according to her. Because Rachel Gunn had nothing to do with it, and because her husband is not part of the committee that organizes any of this, that's just because Australia and/or the Olympics messed up in their ability to open an offer pool for everybody to come and compete fairly. It didn't give an advantage to Rachel aside from having less competition, which she still would have needed to beat with judges who still weren't her husband. I make one video earlier this week saying that we shouldn't be so hard on her, and everybody says, Sumet, why are you going so easy on her? I make another video earlier today saying that she doesn't deserve the praise, and you know what? I gotta remake it because I went a little bit too hard on the broad. What do you want out of me? Now that I've set everything straight, let's move on to a little bit of the new developments. Everybody's paying attention to Rachel Gunn, and she is not a fan of it. Let's be clear, she did not cheat. Her entire qualification was as legitimate as I can tell from the advanced Googling that I did, which means she legitimately beat every other best breakdancer in Australia and legitimately moved on to the Olympics. That's real. Did she also arguably lose a breakdancing competition against a 10-year-old just a year ago? Yeah, that also happened. But the important thing is that she had the skill, at least at the time, to perform at a level that would beat other female breakdancers in her class, and then decided to use that opportunity on the global stage to walk the dinosaur. This is not a matter of debate. That performance kinda sucked. I would argue you can tell so because almost all of the footage from that performance has been wiped. Clearly, the Olympics doesn't want people talking about it. Rachel Gunn has said that she doesn't want anybody contacting her about it because of the harassment that she's getting over it. It kind of feels like that probably wasn't the right move to make. Can I say that? I'm not an Olympic judge. I don't want to have to make a third revision. That same athlete, Leah, the breakdancer who did that interview with Yahoo News, said that it's really affected us. We've got B-girls in tears about it. She says, how do I go to work now and try to get sponsorships and get grant money for our breakdancing programs for a sport that's just been made a mockery of on the global stage? And how do we go and represent our country at other world events when Australia just been made a fool of? It's actually affecting us on a much larger scale than just memes. So I don't feel bad for making fun of Rachel Gunn, who did have the skills to put on a performance, but knowing that she would lose, decided to make a mockery of the sport itself on the global stage. Not my words, the words of other professional breakdancers from her country. And so I apologize for making some assumptions that were absolutely not true, but let's be fair, I probably could have gotten away with it because it feels like everybody wants any excuse to dump on Rachel Gunn. But again, that's not what Scott the Woz would do. Scott the Woz would do it right. I want to do it right. So Rachel, if you're watching this, and I know you are because you're spending 3 weeks in Paris after that performance on your government's money, 2028, Los Angeles, you, me, one-on-one, breakdancing. Winner gets all of Australia. I'll see you there. I'm sure this video is going to get nowhere near the number of views because everybody who already watched the first version isn't going to click the second version, but again, it helps me sleep at night, so I'm going to do it. That's the end of the Rachel Gunn segment. I've got a few more memes at the end of this video that are unclipped from the original, so I'm just going to stick those here. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe. This isn't the end of the video. There's more memes coming. Disneyland is a magical place. I should know. I honeymooned there. I think it's great. That being said, I didn't die there. You know, I probably would have knocked off a few stars if I died there, personally speaking. I'm sure some of you guys remember the age-old rumor, which I still to this moment assumed was fact, that nobody has ever died at Disneyland or Disney World, because evidently if you do lose your life in some capacity, they drag you outside of the park, and then the coroner states that you died like 50 feet that way in order to keep that death count to 0. I believe that up until this news article, which evidently states that a man was married to a woman, shocking, I don't know why anybody would do that, who ended up sadly passing away after eating something at a Disneyland resort that she was assured did not contain any allergens that she was allergic to. Obviously it did. Obviously, she had a horrible allergic reaction and unfortunately passed away due to it. I set up the story kind of weird. That's not the most interesting thing. The really interesting thing is that Disney executives and lawyers or whomever are attempting to try to settle this outside of some sort of major lawsuit by stating that the husband had signed up for a free Disney Plus streaming service back in 2019. What does that matter? The dude wanted to watch Lady and the Tramp in glorious 4K on his iPhone and now he's not allowed to sue Disney? Kind of, yeah. Disney states that according to their user agreement that if you sign up for their streaming service, any sort of issue that you have with the company, you are forfeiting the ability to take it to any sort of formal higher up court and instead has to be settled by arbitration. Basically a lower down court, limiting the amount of damages that they could be sued for. I did not know that if I wanted to watch 102 Dalmatians on my iPhone, that Disney could kill my wife. I would have signed up way earlier if I knew that. My TikTok algorithm, for whatever reason, has been showing me Chinese shit posts in languages that I hardly understand, and I would like to share them with you. This first one is a couple of dudes somewhere in China that are doing AI-generated videos. You guys know the videos where people took old school vines and shit posts and then pumped it through some AI to introduce like time travelers killing the joke or the punchline? These two dudes did it, but without AI, and it's kind of fascinating.
你瞎呀？你怎么说话呢？
How hilarious is it that AI generation in poor quality goes hand in hand with spaghetti? Like if you were to say, hey, the advancement of humankind's ability to generate images artificially is going to be tied hand in hand with Will Smith eating spaghetti, I mean, I'd believe you, but only because I'm in this timeline, you know what I mean? Remember to hit like if you enjoyed watching this video, and remember to subscribe if you want to see me in your inbox every single day. A big shout out to the patron scrolling in the back. Thank you so much for making this show possible. And again, funny green screen memes linked down in the description for your shit posting pleasure. I am excited to see what you guys come up with for this week's Fridays with Sumito. The winner gets free gamer subs, and I will catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.